give that mic a tap, Hayley, sorry, House. Yeah, that's it, thank you.
Business owners on Hammond Avenue aren't too impressed to find out that this project is now blown out to 2027. That means from the time of announcement to the time that it's expected to be completed is now 4 years. Are you happy with this?
Look, can I just say, first of all, it is good to have the Government Transport of New South Wales communicating with the committee on the timeline, and it's good to have a clear timeline on Marshalls Creek Bridge. Look, I share their frustration at the timeline on this. We had to campaign hard to get this as a priority. It is an important issue for our community, the safety of that bridge. And it's a $30 million project, 4-lane bridge. It will be important. But I share their frustration at the timeline. I think the original announcement had work starting in the end of this year, and that effectively will be the middle of next year, although, to be fair, utility relocation will start this year. I think the project's turning out to be a lot bigger project than had been appreciated initially. That is frustrating, there's no question about that. But on the positive side, I will acknowledge that we now have a clear timeline and we need to keep them to that timeline.
That pamphlet of information that was handed out to residents says that government is still in planning phase. Is that after a year?
Look, the government's made a commitment to this project. Clearly we've got to keep them to that. But I think the amount of work that's being done on this project indicates that they are committed to that. I'll be certainly looking for those funds in the upcoming budget and moving on from there. This is a very important piece of work for our community. We have what I think is a really significant safety issue on that highway. It's just getting busier and busier. I think that the pamphlet talks about 21,000 vehicles today, and we know with the services down there how dangerous it is. I appreciate the frustration people feel at the timeline, but look, the good news is we have got this as a priority. We do have work happening, and so we do need to keep the government accountable moving forward.
Is it not concerning if the Minister said that this is going to take priority over most other major infrastructure projects, specifically the Gobble Barland Bridge? Residents, ratepayers are very concerned and that this means that that project is becoming now just a dream. What are you concerned about this halting other process across town?
Look, I think we have two separate issues there, and I don't see this as affecting the planning for the Gobble Barland Bridge and the duplication and the second crossing. This needs to be done. It's an important piece of work, and just remember that the government was going to put this project off. The last government had planned to put this project off and do the intersection work on Gobble Barland. We've turned that around, and I take my hat off to the government for doing that because this is a priority. The Gobble Barland Bridge, the duplication, along with bypass and discussions around Inland Rail, they are all part of planning that needs to happen at a strategic level, and we are continuing to pursue the government on that. That is a much longer term project. We're talking 5 to 10 years for that project, and we need to do the planning around that first. In the meantime, we need to get Marshalls Creek done. Look, I share everyone's frustration about this, but we need to now press on with this. And look, we do have a timeline now. I believe that the work required for the relocation of the utilities has probably proved much more complex than they'd originally thought. But I think we will get a good result out of it. And now that we have a clear timeline, we can keep the government to account for that. And that's what I certainly intend to do.
You just said that the planning needs to take place for Gobble Barland Bridge. Has there been any talk of planning commencing on that project with the Labor government? I
have been following this up with the government on a regular basis. I've indicated the need for that planning to take place. The Minister has indicated to me that we'll be part of their strategic regional planning process, and we will need to keep the government to account on that, and I'm doing that.
Sorry, just asking one quick question. It's approaching 6 months since the Labor government promised free radiotherapy services for the city of Wagga Wagga. Where are we on this?
Again, another issue I have been pursuing with the government. My understanding is that the tender process has closed for that. Now remember, this is a private service. It's provided by a private firm. And so there has to be a due process with government where there's a tender and competition and so on. My understanding is that that has completed and they are in negotiations in regard to that. I am going to be looking for the funding for that in this budget. And The government did indicate that would be the timeline towards the middle of this year. So I am looking for that in the upcoming budget.
Beautiful, thanks Joe. I'll hop out of your roads.
Now I didn't look at you, I'm sorry, I was just looking past
No,
you.
no,
But
really, I appreciate it, honestly, and thanks
All right.
Emily for being the eye line.
Thanks, everyone.
Right.
Have a safe travels.
Thank you, hopefully I'll get there. Righto.
Hopefully.
Is good. Perfect. So just on today's DP
Yes.
announcement, what do you make of that?
Sorry.
Yeah, you're right there.
Okay. It's good to see the government responding to the situation now, quickly responding. At a high level, it covers off on 3 key areas: improving support for victim survivors and their families, and I noticed increased funding for the Staying Home Leaving Violence program. It also flags, I think, 45 million for a review of the Bail Act, and that is critical. And I also noticed that it's talking very much about early intervention and prevention, and has allocated funding for that. So look, at the big picture level, those are important initiatives. Clearly need to see the detail across each of those. Clearly we need to see the detail on the bail laws. I would like to see some more support for the Court Advocacy Service and the Women's Health Centre here, for example. And for me, primary prevention is a very important area. Our city, in fact, has led the way on that in many respects, but I think men's behaviour change programs are an important component of that.
You mentioned the Staying Home Leaving Violence project. That's almost the complete opposite of what the federal government is doing in terms of helping people leave their homes. Do you think that is a coordinated approach, or do you think that there's been a little bit of miscommunication there?
Look, I think the Staying Home Leaving Violence program has actually proved quite successful, and I think it's been evaluated. Now, just let's have a think about this. I mean, you're a victim of domestic violence and you're the one expected to leave home. I mean, to me, it makes sense that the alleged perpetrators are the ones that should be leaving home, and women and their children should be able to continue to live in their homes. So that's what the program's geared at. I think that's a good direction. It's been evaluated, so I support the additional funding going in there.
Okay, and also you mentioned the services here, including the Women's Health Centre. Last week, Nicky Birkinshaw said that the federal approach didn't really give any mention to regional areas. Same with this morning's announcement. What do you make of that?
Regional areas have got to be in this funding, and that is something we need to keep the government to account on, and I will be keeping the government up to the job on that. Regional areas, as we heard last week, regional areas are more impacted by this, and of course in regional areas you've got issues of isolation, reduced transport services and reduced services overall. So it's more important than ever that the regions get the services they need. So that is a critical area, and I fully acknowledge the advocacy of the groups on that, and we need to keep pushing that.
Thanks.
Thanks.